Hi, so I'm here because I've always been fascinated with on-screen depictions of romance and passion, which is fairly understandable considering I grew up watching Bollywood movies, which have their own brand of crazy drama, and I've had a few life experiences where on-screen shows of desire didn't quite match up with real life. On that point, I've decided to follow this particular interest to discuss why certain scenes are romantic and if that romance is something legitimate, meaning that in the real world it would make sense. I hope anybody watching this doesn't take it as a, oh no, everything needs to be PC bro type of thing. I'm just trying to reconcile my feelings about watching something on screen that maybe I wouldn't be so cool with in real life. It's not that I don't want people to have crazy dramatic moments on screen, because those are pretty awesome, but I think there needs to be a level of discourse and reflection on it, just to maybe realize the impact that it could have. And I think that's the goal of media in general anyways, to help us broaden our discussions and think about how we would react in our own lives. So, heavy spoilers for The Office. If you have not seen The Office, go watch it. Or click away now. It's honestly a really great show with awesome heart. I started watching the show when it had already been on air for a few years, so for better or for worse, high school me was introduced to binge watching by way of DVD rentals. I particularly enjoy the first seasons, but if I'm honest, all of it's just great because the writing and the characters are awesome and you just grow to love them so much. So, the couple I'm going to be talking about is Jim and Pam, who are the main couple aside from maybe Dwight and Angela throughout the entire arc of the show. Now, I'm totally here for Jim and Pam. They were always on each other's sides during their schemes, they got each other, even when they got together their struggles in married life were real, but in a funny, relatable, and charming way. Okay, so moving on from the positives, let's talk about the scene in question that eventually gave me pause. End of season 2, casino night. Jim finds Pam alone in the office and just goes for it. I gotta say I was all for it, cause that Jim and Pam tension was too much. But then, next season Pam and Jim still hadn't gotten together again. Why? I don't get it! What is the world coming to? When will the madness end? My 17-year-old self asked, well, kind of shrieked anyway. Looking back, I see why. The writers did Pam a solid with their choices here. But still, that scene though, it was so romantic, right? Before we discuss anything else, we gotta talk about the setup, because context is everything. Anyone familiar with The Office would already know about Jim's longing looks, and Pam's wistful glances over her reception desk despite her relationship with her fiancé Roy. The silences that would say, I see you, Jim, but I just can't. They conveyed so much, and the general vibes were so good. Seriously, it was almost too much. 2 seasons worth of that, and it just felt like things needed to come to a head. In the last half of the episodes of season 2, Jim's longing looks became a bit more directed, and Pam wasn't able to brush off Jim's meaningful silences with as much ease. By the time the Dunder Mifflin hosted party, aka Casino Night, rolls around, Jim has decided to take himself out of the equation at the Scranton branch of Dunder Mifflin by requesting a transfer to a different branch, with Pam none the wiser about his feelings. However, just at the moment when Roy leaves the party, with a slightly patronizing yet trusting, maybe good-natured request for Jim to look out for Pam for the rest of the night, he immediately, literally in the wake of Roy's leaving, announces to Pam that he's in love with her, and that he has been in love with her since he started working at the office. She does her best to triage the situation while trying to save her friendship with Jim, navigating the feelings that he's just dumped on her, and apologizing for her role in perpetuating any feelings he may have had for her. And reminding Jim that she has already made her choice and is engaged to Roy. Jim begins to cry, backing away and dismissing Pam's attempts to reinstate their bond of friendship, because clearly at this point, that's not what he wants anymore, and he is no longer capable of giving that to Pam. The moment. So the big scene. In the empty office, Pam is crying and talking to her mother on the phone. Clearly she is upset about what just happened with Jim, and her mother knows who Jim is, signaling that he is important to Pam, important enough to have mentioned to her mother. Out of nowhere, Jim just walks into the office, grabs hold of Pam, and kisses her, and she seems to kiss him back. So, why isn't this romantic? Okay, for one thing, Pam was very clear. No thanks, Jim, all I can give you is friendship. Jim refused to accept her answer or her offer of friendship, chose to leave, and then made a decision to return. He chose to ignore her first answer and gave her no option to try and stop him from kissing her. Despite her feelings and the fact that she reciprocated the kiss to an extent, Pam had obviously said what she had needed to say to Jim, and responded in a way that would prevent her from being in danger of acting on her feelings and betraying Roy's trust. Now, I'm not saying it was good for Pam to deny her feelings, but even if she acknowledged them, it should have been her choice to decide how she acted on those feelings, as opposed to being forced by someone else who was imposing a physical act on her. So, why is this romantic? As I said, I love The Office, and I was really pulling for Jim and Pam to get together, because they were obviously so meant to be. It was crazy. All those little moments you know Jim cares so desperately for Pam, and that Pam deserves to be treated better than how she's being treated by her current fiancé, Roy. Side props to the writing here. Through her experiences with Jim, Pam does start to assert herself more with Roy, pushing him to do better by her, and for her to do better by herself. You know that Pam and Jim get each other in a way that maybe their current/future partners won't, though Jim does seem to connect fairly well with most of the women that he pursues, treating them with the same puppy dog devotion that he shows for Pam, albeit with a little bit of what-ifness related to Pam in all of his actions. Plus, it's Jim, a man expressing his feelings after having pined away for so long, getting all glossy-eyed, which I think had most people going, "Aww," 'cause you know, a man doing unmanly things. So brave. But then thinking about it, I began to realize that the interactions and connections I felt with the men and the women I worked with did not reflect this at all. How would I feel if I was in Pam's position? Sure, I would appreciate that bond with a coworker or friend, but I would definitely not appreciate someone rejecting my sincere offer of friendship to instead push what they wanted on me, forcing me to deal with the guilt and the burden of their feelings. To be clear, I have no problem with Jim not wanting to be friends, especially if it was too painful or felt emotionally unsafe for him to do so. I do have a problem with Jim deciding not to take her no, needing to have his own version of a satisfying end to the relationship by giving it his last best shot with a kiss, or else at least having a kiss if she did end up refusing him again. Okay, but why? Why is this romantic, I hear you asking? The reason this works at all is because the writing and the acting leading up to, and even more so following the interaction, is so good. The writers don't paint Pam as a bad person for being unable to offer Jim more than friendship, just as they don't paint Jim as a bad guy for expressing his feelings. They also give Jim an opportunity to explain that he had accepted Pam's rejection of a romantic relationship, despite his initial refusal to accept it on her terms. Yet again, the writing of Pam's character here is awesome, because in the following season she is able to grow to a place where she can be open with her feelings without shame or expectation, and profess that she misses her connection/friendship with Jim, without the same "aww" effect. By the way, way more of a cringe reaction, partially due to the scene setup, but also maybe because a lady doing lady things in public. Gross. But even this is handled well, as Pam owns her public confession and doesn't feel ashamed of saying what she needed to say. Anyway, she's able to show that she's willing to accept friendship if that is all Jim is able to offer, and that she will happily respect the boundaries he sets. All things that Jim was unable to do at the end of season 2. True, his emotions were heightened and he was upset about being rejected, but that didn't really make it okay, did it? Fictionally, maybe, I don't know. I still love the heck out of this relationship, but looking back, I have way more sympathy for Pam's position than Jim's. If it were nonfiction, in that particular moment, Jim comes across as less of a pining hero, and more as a sad, dejected little boy who's acting out of desperation and frustration because he can't have what he wants, even though he's been so nice to the girl and is trying to impress her or make her happy with all the things that he does. And more than that, he knows what will make her happy, namely a relationship with him. Which is a dangerous expectation or pattern to set up. I think on that note, the scene is going to be a fictional, yes, it's romantic, with context and redemptive writing. In the nonfiction, maybe not so okay. So if anyone's out there, thanks for watching. Please let me know what you thought of my first video. If you have any suggestions for other romantic pairings, I would love to hear them. I'm working on a couple now, and hopefully they'll get better as I go. Either way, I'm always grateful for feedback and suggestions. Thanks again, and take care.
I bought those boat tickets the day I saw that YouTube video. I knew we'd need a backup plan. The boat was actually plan C, the church was plan B, and plan A was marrying her a long, long time ago. Pretty much the day I met her.